climate change, natural disasters, education, poverty eradication, gender equality, human rights. These are just a few of the issues on the global agenda at the United Nations. To address psychology's contribution to these issues, Psychology Day at the UN brings together various stakeholders, including experts, UN staff, NGOs, the private sector, students and youth, and others, to exchange ideas, establish partnerships, and advance advocacy activities of psychologists at the UN and around the world.
It is vitally important for our colleagues within psychology to know that we have a voice within the UN family in an advisory role to ECOSOC and in relationship to DPI. It is also crucial for the UN to know of the vital role psychology can play in addressing many issues that are raised at the UN.
Many speakers represent UN agencies and initiatives.
Women have played an active role as peacemakers, peace builders, and negotiators. Regrettably, despite their resilience, and perhaps because of it, attention to the deeply ingrained psychological wounds from the trauma experienced during conflict is often lacking.
Panelists are also psychologists and mental health experts.
I did my first study in South Africa looking at the effects of political violence on youth and found many different factors contributed to increasing resilience.
Race, political beliefs, ethnicity, religion. These are some of the things, sexual orientation. These are some of the things that led people to be persecuted.
Psychology Days have addressed the psychological impact of climate change and of natural disasters and outlined best practices.
As we've seen with Katrina and the Asian tsunami, there are profound mental health consequences of disaster. So these include post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, substance use, suicide, increased violence. We've all seen these consequences of disaster that can last a very long time.
The orphans are suffering tremendously now and will suffer even more. Here you see a 13-month-old child who had her leg amputated. The amputation cases are endless, and it is going to create a huge social and familial problem and individual problem in Haiti that all of us as psychologists can help with.
We collaborate extensively with existing health workers, with the non-governmental organizations, and the traditional leaders and healers in the community.
Negotiation was the topic of another Psychology Day.
Appreciation. This is a core concern, and neuroscience is also starting to demonstrate the power of appreciation in terms of cooperation, in terms of creative thinking, and so on.
Eradicating poverty is UN Millennium Development Goal number 1, the topic of UN commissions, and a top priority for Psychology Day.
The burden of chronic poverty is a burden borne primarily by women and girls.
The United Nations Global Educational Initiative, which started in 2000, has made mammoth strides in promoting gender parity and equality.
Education is Goal 4 of the UN Global Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, supported by the current Secretary General, especially in humanitarian emergencies, a $2.5 billion investment of the World Bank to help girls be successful in school, an initiative of the former Secretary General, and a subject of a previous commission on the status of women. Consistent with this, a Psychology Day addressed psychologists' contributions to the science and technology education for girls. A group of female students demonstrated using science skills to build a boat.
Empowering us brings everyone closer to human rights for all.
Human rights and social justice for all is especially highlighted at Psychology Days.
There are also major restrictions on the rights of refugees, the potential for refugees to enjoy the full range of rights that they should be able to reach.
In terms of issues of economic well-being of the elderly, certainly increases in the world economy are real, their distribution is uneven.
Because domestic workers is highly unregulated, it leaves those who do it, in legal vulnerability. In other words, they are not adequately protected by the existing law.
One of the things that we know, we have data on this, that the more satisfied employees are with their jobs, the greater the productivity, the more successful the organization.
Psychology has a wealth of research and experience to bring to bear on helping the UN and its workforce implement the changes necessary for it to function effectively.
Partnerships in psychosocial projects and global initiatives with UN agencies and others are described.
The One International was in cooperation with the UNHCR, and in Kosovo we did in cooperation with UNICEF.
What came out of all this was the WHO Executive Board resolution, which is really requiring that WHO develop a global action plan for mental health.
Recommendations result from the sessions.
I think one of the important things that came out of the workshop is to be culturally sensitive.
The second recommendation is for education administrators and officials to involve young people in community building.
Students and youth are encouraged to participate.
I just had a comment about the story you mentioned, the academic in school.
I just have a question for Dr. Akinsulade. Wonderful presentation. How do you go out into the community? Does your hospital provide you opportunities to go out into the community, to get to know different communities, to talk to those community leaders?
What do you see as the role of human rights discourse in our ability to do so?
Psychology Day at the UN is sponsored by the many psychology-related organizations accredited at the United Nations with non-governmental status to have access to UN activities and to hold events. Many now part of the Psychology Coalition.
This event is the result of vision, of organization, and of sheer hard work on the part of the many psychology organizations with representatives in the NGO community.
চললে বাবা আমাদের মেয়েটাকে কোন কারখানায়?
Calling for action against trafficking and against all forms of violence against women is the topic of this year's United Nations Commission on the Status of Women and also this year's Psychology Day at the UN, coming up on April 25th.
Given the recent violence that we've experienced in Newtown and Aurora and around the world, we're concerned about the antecedents, the consequences, and how to prevent global violence.
This is the one day a year where psychologists accredited to the United Nations, psychologists from around the country, UN officials and diplomats get together to exchange ideas on an important topic. And this year, this important topic is the reduction and control of violence in the world.